Welcome to another webinar with Mariner Wealth Advisors. Today's session is on cybersecurity and protecting yourselves from scams. Now, we want to make sure that this session is engaging for you, and we'd like to hear from you. So please use your Q&A function at the bottom of the page. Keep those questions coming in as they pop up in your head. We're going to try to get to all of your questions, but just in case there is a question that we can't get to, we encourage you to reach back out to Mariner and we'll get you connected to the right person to answer your question. Also note that closed captioning has been enabled for this webinar. If you'd like to use it, please click on the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Christina Lynn. I am a member of the practice management team here at Mariner, and I will be your host for the webinar. And you're in for a treat today. We have an excellent speaker in store for you, Colin Connors. Colin is not affiliated with Mariner, but rather he is an information security consultant at ERM Protect. It's a cybersecurity firm. He is a PhD candidate in computer science at the University of Miami. And in addition to keeping firms' information secure, he also is working on some interesting research projects, including blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. So I'm going to pass the microphone over to Colin so he can tell us a little bit about himself.
Thanks, Christina. So as she said, I'm Colin Connors. I work for the cybersecurity firm ERM Protect. We're a cybersecurity firm. We've been around for 25 years, and I've been with the firm for 7 of those years. I'm also a PhD student at the University of Miami studying blockchain and cybersecurity.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to hear your presentation, so I'll pass the baton back to you and you can get started with that.
Thank you. So today's presentation, we're going to look at cybersecurity from the perspective of common cyber scams. So what are some cybersecurity concerns that we face today? Well, 58% of adults are more worried than ever about being a victim of cybercrime. 63% of consumers said they were very worried that their identity will be stolen. And 78% of consumers are concerned about data privacy. So as you can see, this is a very pressing issue for us today. And the problem is everything we have, all of our devices and platforms are at risk. 70% of online fraud is accomplished through mobile platforms such as cell phones. 3 in every 5 US gamers admit that they're worried that gaming will become less secure. 53% of people distrust smart devices to protect their privacy and handle their information. And 34% of US adults don't trust social media companies to safeguard their data. So we might wonder, what are the hackers after? What exactly is the valuables that these thieves are trying to steal? Well, the answer is your information. Here we can see some of the key pieces of information that hackers try to steal and post for sale on the dark web. And this is how much some of that information sells. Stolen credit card details with the CVV will sell for $15. If a credit card has an account balance of about $5,000, then it will be sold for about $120. Hacked payment processing services such as PayPal, Cash App, Skrill, Western Union, or Stripe are available for as low as $10. And this can go all the way up to $1,000 for a verified Stripe account. As said earlier, I do research in blockchain, which covers cryptocurrency, which is another big target for hackers. Crypto accounts can go for sale starting at $90 for a blockchain.com account, and this goes up to $400 for a verified Bidit.io account. Other exchanges such as Kraken will sell for $250, Binance for $260, and Xcoin will sell for $320. Your social media accounts are also a prime target. A Spotify account will sell for just $1. And a Gmail account could sell for up to $65. Other social media like Facebook will sell for $45, Instagram will sell for $40, and Twitter will sell for $25. Other hacked services, such as a Netflix account with a 1-year subscription, will sell for $25. NBA League Pass can sell for $7. A Hulu account will sell for $5. An Uber account will sell for $15, and an Uber driver account will sell for as much as $35. And lastly, one of the most common pieces of information is your social security number or other identifying information, which sells for as low as $4. The fact that most of these accounts are not that expensive should bother you. It increases your chance of being a victim of fraud and identity theft, among other things. These are some of the common attack vectors used by hackers. We have email-based attacks, which are attacks against your email. Phone-based attacks, where a hacker attempts to hack your mobile phone. On-the-move attack, where the hackers will attempt to physically hack you. On the internet, where the hackers will attempt to hack you over the internet. Smishing, which is a form of trying to trick the user via SMS or text messages. And vishing, which is a form of trying to trick the user using voice messages. Don't be worried if you're not familiar with all these techniques right now. We're going to go in depth in each of these categories to make sure we're familiar with how hackers use these and how we can protect ourselves from hackers who use these techniques. Our first attack vector is the email-based attack. As we know, email is a very common form of communication today, both in business and for personal use. But hackers also know that people like using email. And so hackers target email and email infrastructure. As a result, email has become a favored carrier of attacks such as viruses, worms, ransomware, and pretty much all other forms of malware. Cyber threats over email tend to change and evolve over time, just like any other cyber threat. So we can look at some of the common cyber threats we face over email. First, we have phishing attacks. Phishing attacks are performed over email when a hacker tries to trick you into performing actions online that expose your information. This information is then used by the bad guys in various ways, including fraud, identity theft, draining your bank account, masquerading as you, and other such nefarious things. Another way hackers try to attack you via email is through malware. Malware is short for malicious software. It includes things like Trojans, rootkits, adware, spyware, and other scary names. Malware is a piece of code or software that is specifically designed with malicious intent. Hackers take advantage of email, thumb drives, online ads, or any other medium to deliver malware. Once a malware attack is successful, the malware will implant itself on your computer or your network and serves as an entry point for hackers to enter and steal your sensitive information or even extort money from you. For example, one of the most common forms of malware is called ransomware. Ransomware is when hackers get into your computer and lock your data away from you. And the only way you can recover that data is if you agree to pay the hackers some sum of money. Lastly, a common email attack is spam. We all know spam. It's the annoying emails you get that you never asked for, but they still end up in your inbox. The dangerous part is that sometimes these spam messages can carry you to malware or other attacks. This is why we should always be careful of emails that land in our inbox and make sure that they're from trusted sources and are not forms of spam. So how do we protect ourselves when we're using email? Well, the basics are having a good firewall and a good antivirus solution installed on your computer. But even more so, keeping your computer fully up to date is super important. Always install updates to your operating system on time. Also, check your browser, Firefox, Internet Explorer, or Chrome, and see if it has anti-phishing features. Some of these features may include a toolbar that compares websites you attempt to visit, which are known phishing sites. The next thing we can do is turn off our computer. Never leave your computer turned on and connected to the internet 24/7. Always turn it off when you're not using it. Next, over email, we can't give away sensitive information. Reputable companies will never ask for this sensitive information via email. So it's best practice to never give anyone any sensitive information through email. We should also avoid accessing sensitive emails via public Wi-Fi connections, as hackers can see into this and check those emails. Likewise, we need to be careful of suspicious links in our emails. Whenever we see a link or attachment, don't rush to click it, because that's what the hacker wants. The hacker wants a sense of urgency for you to click on the link and go directly to their malicious website. Instead, take the time to look at the link. You can mouse over the link to see where it really brings you. Don't click on any untrusted links. Another thing is to watch for the subject line. Hackers often give scam emails a subject as something like important notice. Your account has been blocked. We are unable to process your request. Alert from security team. These subjects are meant to instill a sense of fear and urgency into you, but don't play into the hacker's hand. Watch out for these subjects and don't click on any sketchy links, and don't reply to them or open any attachments, as any of these actions could lead to you accidentally downloading malware onto your system. Another tip is to use separate email accounts. More often than not, people use one email account that becomes a central hub for all of their emails, whether it's their social media, news notifications, registering for websites, or any other things we use email for. This is kind of like putting all of your eggs in one basket. Imagine what happens when that one email address gets hacked. So a good tip is to create separate email accounts for putting things like your subscriptions, your news feeds, and other things in a separate email account for each item. Finally, a final tip is to use strong passwords. I think the word password is actually a bad word. Instead of using a password, you should use a long passphrase, which is made up of multiple words. And we shouldn't use this passphrase on every site. Each site should have a different, unique passphrase so that hackers can't guess one passphrase and then get into all of our sites at once. Our next attack vector is the phone-based attack. Smartphones today are not just a communication and entertainment device. They've become an important part of our lives. They're like personal mini computers, which people can do just about anything from, including banking, shopping, connecting with people on social media, watching videos, checking emails, and the list goes on. And that's exactly what's attracting hackers. Hackers want to threaten your smartphone in various ways. One of the most common ways that hackers attack smartphones is through malware. Again, malware tops the charts when it comes to infecting smartphones. And there's many different variants of malware. Again, typically malware aims to breach your privacy by eavesdropping on your electronic communications and stealing your private information or creating a backdoor into your device. Therefore, it makes you vulnerable to identity theft, credit card or bank account compromise, and other such cyber crimes. Another way hackers target smartphones is through malicious applications. This is when hackers create a fake smartphone app and try to get you to download that fake app. Sometimes these apps will have permissions such as accessing your camera, reading your contacts, or even reading your email. It's important that we only download apps from trusted parties, such as the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. Think of it this way: the more apps you have on your phone, the more likely it is for hackers to try to target you. Another way hackers attack you is through social media. We all have the constant urge to keep sharing information online and looking at what other people are sharing, visiting links, shopping on sites, and more through social media apps and sites. Social media has thus become a favorite platform of hackers to trick users into clicking on malicious links or posts. Even spammers now are shifting their focus from email to social media. Another way that phones are targeted are through Internet of Things. These are the smart devices that we have in our homes, such as smart fridges, smart lights, Alexa, Google. And these are devices that are internet enabled and connected to our phones and the rest of our home. Since smartphones are used to interact with these smart IoT devices, smartphones have become a target to take over these IoT devices and listen in on users. This is why it's important to keep our smartphone and our IoT devices separate so that hackers cannot get into one through the other. Lastly, hackers will try to steal your cell phone. When the hackers steal your cell phone, they can go through all of your data that you keep on there, including your photos, your contacts, your emails, and other sensitive information. This is why it's important never to leave your smartphone unattended, even if it's just for a short period of time, because hackers can copy all of the data from your cell phone in just 15 minutes. And it only takes a hacker a few seconds to steal your phone and run away with it. So how can we keep ourselves safe when we're using our smartphone? The first thing is to use a clean system. We should keep our phones clean by patching and updating the operating system in all of our applications. By keeping the software up to date, it prevents hackers from being able to use old vulnerabilities. Also, we can use antivirus, anti-spam, anti-phishing, and anti-malware features to safeguard our mobile devices. Next, we should never jailbreak our phones. Jailbreaking is a way of rooting or making your smartphone have bonus features. While this might give you access to a few more apps, it also makes your phone extremely vulnerable to malware and hackers. The act of jailbreaking your phone gives these apps root level access to your phone, meaning that a hacker can do anything they want with your phone. Next, you should have a kill switch enabled on your phone, which allows you to remotely wipe any data on your smartphone. Like the name suggests, it renders the phone completely useless to actually do anything. You can also use the kill switch to pinpoint your phone's precise geolocation, and you can also display custom messages on your phone screen, such as an alternate contact number. So if your phone is lost, you can have somebody contact you and bring you the phone. All in all, get to know the kill switch feature. Yeah, do we have a question?
Well, it sounds like you're going to talk more about the kill switch, but I'm unfamiliar with that. So can you just tell people like where you find this or?
Yeah, so it depends on the type of phone you have. So Android and iPhone will be a little different, but it should be in your settings. You should have the option to enable something like remote wipe might be the name of the setting. I can find some links afterwards for each specific operating system. But for all major cell phones, there's a way to remotely wipe your cell phone. So Apple does it through iCloud, Android does it slightly differently. And it's a good thing to get familiar with this kind of feature so that you know how you can find your phone if it's lost or stolen, or how you can wipe your phone in the case that it's lost or stolen, since we all keep such sensitive information on our phones.
Got it. That's helpful. Thanks.
Another tip for keeping our phone safe is to always lock the device and set a secure password. Keep your phone locked when you're not using it, and make sure that nobody knows the PIN or your password to get into your phone. We should choose a random PIN, not something that's easy to associate with you, like your date of birth, a house number, or a street number. As a good rule of thumb, it's good to never keep anything on your smartphone that you wouldn't want the world to see, since they're such vulnerable targets. Lastly, you should activate two-factor authentication on your smartphone apps, as it adds an additional layer of security to your device. So whenever a sign-in happens from a new device or a different location, a time-sensitive code can be sent to you so that you can verify that it was you who was trying to log in. Some more smartphone security tips are setting the application permissions. Some apps will ask for extra permissions, such as accessing your phone calls, your text, or your camera. When you download a new app, ask yourself, does this app need to have access to my camera, my phone calls, my text, or my settings in order to perform its function? If the answer is no, make sure you restrict the settings for that app. Likewise, watch out for suspicious links. Links in emails, text, or online posts are another very common way that criminals will try to compromise your device. If it looks suspicious and you don't know the source, it's best just not to click on it. For example, ads in websites can look like messages or diagnostic warnings that you might want to click on. It's best practice not to click on anything that you're not 100% sure about. Like we stated earlier, hackers will even attach malware into applications that you download. We said earlier to only download from trusted sources like the Apple iTunes Store or the Google Play Store. However, hackers can get apps on these trusted platforms. So before downloading an app, make sure that the app has at least 100 reviews and several thousand downloads before you install it. Remember to read the reviews and make sure that people aren't reviewing the app and saying that it is malware. Next, avoid public Wi-Fi when you can. Don't give away any sensitive information over email, text, social media, or any sites when you're on public Wi-Fi. Again, remember, reputable companies will never ask for such sensitive information.
Colin, can you say more about that? Like, what is safe to do when you're on public Wi-Fi? Like, just look at the news or?
It's a great question. Yeah. So imagine anything you do on public Wi-Fi is public, right? If you want to send an email, it's best to imagine that a hacker is already listening and will see that email that you send. So don't do anything on public Wi-Fi that you wouldn't want somebody else to see.
Gotcha. Okay.
So scrolling the news is fine. Sending emails with your social security number in it is probably not fine. Another thing we can do to protect our phones is to back up our phones. We want to back up all of our contacts, our pictures, and any other data, just in case we need to wipe our phone if it's lost or stolen. One simple way to back up our phones is to plug it into our computer and have our computers do the phone backups. iPhones and Androids both have cloud backups as well, such as iCloud or Google Drive, where you can back up your data. But we have to remember, if we're going to back up our data to the cloud can also be hacked. So don't put anything into the cloud that you wouldn't want to be stolen. So the next form of attack we're going to talk about is on-the-move attacks. These are attacks where hackers attack you in the physical world. So one example of the on-the-move attacks are these free Wi-Fis. Hackers will sometimes open up fake free Wi-Fi hotspots, encouraging people to join. Once you join a hacker's fake Wi-Fi hotspot, they can see all of your internet traffic and do anything they want. This is called a man-in-the-middle attack, where the hacker sits in the middle and reads all of your traffic and changes any traffic that they want to change. Another low-tech way that hackers attack us in the physical world is just peeping over our shoulder. Hackers will watch you in public if you type in your password, if you're sending sensitive information. Be careful what you type in public. Anyone can look over your shoulder and see you type in your password. They can see you type that sensitive email. So we should always be careful when we're performing these actions in a public space. Another way hackers attack us are actually through public charging ports. We've all seen those charging ports they have at airports where you can plug in your phone, but believe it or not, hackers can use this to steal your information. The cords that you use to plug in don't just transfer charge to your phone, but they'll also transfer data. So a hacker can set up a public charging port where when you plug in your phone, sure, it will charge it, but the hacker will also make a copy of all of your data in the background. This is why you need to be super careful whenever you plug in to public Wi-Fi or public charging ports. Make sure you always bring your own cable and you only plug it directly into an outlet. You don't plug it into anything that you can't see behind. Another way hackers attack us are through public computers. So any public computer that offers us internet access is high risk. Hackers can insert malware or keyloggers on these computers to track all of the information that's going through that computer. So we want to be super careful whenever we use a public computer that we don't give away any kind of sensitive information.
Hey, Colin, can I back up? When you said, like, don't plug your cord into something that you can't see, are you saying, like, unless you have the block yourself that plugs into the outlet, like, don't plug the cord into like the airplane seat, for example, or something like that?
Yeah, I would suggest always plugging your cord into your own block and plugging that into the wall. So most airplanes now do have a prong that you can actually plug into. And you'll even see like around the airport, they'll have outlets. Don't plug into a USB port, right? If you plug into a USB port directly, that's when hackers can start trying to steal your data. And certainly don't plug into any cord that you don't own. So if you didn't bring the cord with you, don't plug into it. That's another way that hackers are using to steal your data.
Gotcha.
So another way hackers attack us in the physical world is over Bluetooth or NFC. These are those near card readers where if you get close to something, it'll trigger a Bluetooth or a payment. Hackers can put these malicious Bluetooth or other things around you. And if you connect to them, they can go ahead and steal your information through these services. I've even seen hackers put fake payment cards where if you bring your phone near them, they can trick your Apple Pay into paying the hacker. So it's important to make sure that we disable Bluetooth and any such thing like the Apple Pay or the near card readers so that our phones don't accidentally do that when we don't want them to. So here are some security tips to keep in mind when we're traveling. We should only travel with devices and data that are absolutely required. If we don't need it, leave it at home, leave it turned off. Before you pack, make sure you make a backup of all of your important data. This obviously helps in case you lose your device, but it can also help if you are hacked to know which data was hacked and what data was new. Also, before you pack, make sure that you always scan your system and devices for malware and viruses regularly. You should do this before going on a trip, during the trip, and when you get back from your trip. You don't want to be in a situation where you've been hacked and you just don't know it yet.
And
the more you can run,
So how do you run to check that?
Yeah, so there's many different ways to do it depending on your device or your phone. I personally use a system called Malwarebytes, which is an application I can install on my phone and on my computer, and it will run automatically for me in the background. And there's lots of these anti-malware services out there, so I would recommend looking into one that works for you.
Gotcha, thank you.
So another thing to keep in mind while traveling is we should avoid public Wi-Fi hotspots. Like we said, hackers will set up these hotspots when they can just to steal your information. So only connect to trusted Wi-Fi who you know who the owner is. Next, never leave any of your devices out of sight. Again, hackers can steal your device and copy all of the data on that device in a matter of just 15 minutes. Make sure that you always know where your devices are so that none of your sensitive data is stolen. Another tip is to upload information on social media only when necessary. Your vacation pics can wait until you're back home. And please don't do anything silly like posting a picture of your boarding pass on social media. In fact, the Prime Minister of Australia once posted his boarding pass on Instagram, And within a matter of minutes, his passport number was stolen because he posted a picture of his boarding pass. So make sure we disable and disconnect all miscellaneous connected mediums, such as Bluetooth, the NFC, and even Wi-Fi when we're not using them. This prevents hackers from using those as a means of getting into our phones. Like we said earlier, use your own chargers, your own headphones, and your own gadgets. Don't trust anything that you see, especially things that are listed as public chargers or public headphones. Only plug things into your phone and your devices that you trust. Likewise, when you're on the move, avoid using websites that contain sensitive information, such as your online banking, work-related accounts, insurance sites, or online shopping. Only connect to those sites when you're on a trusted, safe network. Again, avoid typing or keying in any personal or sensitive information while you're traveling. Anyone can look over your shoulder and see that sensitive information. If you must, find a discreet location where you know nobody's looking over your shoulder. Again, with all the focus on Wi-Fi networks, don't make the mistake of thinking that connecting to something like the hotel's network is any safer. Always make sure that any public network you're on, you only send public things. Don't connect to sensitive accounts like bank accounts or any other sensitive accounts when you're on a public network. This includes things like hotels, coffee shops, or anywhere else you might find public Wi-Fi. So the next medium of attack we're going to talk about is through the internet. So surfing the internet is something we all do nowadays. However, hackers also use the internet to attack us. A very common way hackers attack us is through the evil pop-up. This is when you run into a pop-up window when you're on the internet. And if you try to click the little X to close out of it, then boom, you're infected with malware. Even the best tech brains have secretly admitted to falling for these secret pop-ups. So the key to protecting yourself lies on not clicking on the pop-up when it comes up. Instead of closing the pop-up by clicking the red X, which could lead to you installing malware, close your browser using the taskbar at the bottom of your screen. Another way hackers attack us over the internet is through the padlocks. Gone are the days where it was easy enough to check if the little padlock in your browser was there to ensure that it was an HTTPS link. Hackers now can get HTTPS websites that look real, but are not. So we have to update how we're checking for these attacks. Instead of just looking, does this website have a padlock? We need to make sure that the URL of the website is the correct URL. The content on the website matches what we expect the content on the website to be. And the final thing is hackers will attack everything on the internet. When you're on the internet, you are out there to be a target for hackers. Everything is game to these people. They'll use malware, social engineering, or directly break into your device. It's super important that we always stay vigilant whenever we're on the internet. So here are some tips on how we can stay safe when we're using the internet. Like we just spoke about, there's a little padlock in the top corner of our browsers. If you don't see that padlock, that should be a warning sign not to enter any personal or sensitive information. But even when we do see the padlock, we can double click it to see the certificate information. We can check that that certificate belongs to the company who says the site is theirs. Another tip is that search engines don't always give us the best results. Hackers have found ways to manipulate search engines like Google to put malicious sites at the top of the search. So always check the URL before you click on the search engine result. We can use our favorite search engine, and typically they'll have a link that says, is this site safe? And you can find out whether or not a site you're trying to click on is actually safe. A third tip is to never trust freebies online. Free movies, free music, free videos, free software, free games, and almost all other freebies on the internet are often loaded with malware. When you're surfing the internet, if you come across a pop-up window with an ad or a warning on it, don't click on the exit out sign. Instead, close the pop-up window by right-clicking on its title in the system taskbar. Avoid using other people's computer to access online accounts or to communicate any personal information that you wouldn't want compromised. When you're using a website that you have an account on, remember to always log out. Otherwise, not so friendly folks can hijack your account and take control of it. Lastly, stay alert of online scams. They can appear as legitimate ads that show up on even the most reputable websites, but these are not to be trusted. Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The next type of attack we're going to talk about is called smishing. Smishing is a type of attack where the user tricks the victim into giving out personal information by sending mobile text messages. An attacker usually pretends to be some institution like a bank or a company, asking the victim to click on a link or reply to the text message. Some common smishing attacks are fake financial institutions sending messages to notify a victim of fraud, scammers sending a text message to notify a victim that they've been awarded some sum of money. Scammers send invitations to victims to participate in fake surveys. Other confirmed text messages asking you to confirm an order or an order to a link to modify or cancel an order. Or even text messages that have multi-factor authentication codes where the attacker tries to trick the victim into giving out that code to the attacker in order to complete an authentication process of the victim's accounts. Here are some tips to keep yourself safe from smishing attacks. Don't be in a hurry to click on links received over text messages. Validate the sender of the message and make sure the sender is genuine. In fact, contact the company before responding to text messages to ensure that the message came from them. Don't provide any sensitive data over text messages. Never share your multi-factor authentication codes with anyone. And lastly, do not call back on phone numbers mentioned in text messages. Instead, visit the official website of the company and contact the number mentioned on their website instead of the one you found in the text message. The last attack I want to talk about today is vishing. Vishing scams, also known as voice phishing, are attacks used by hackers to steal personal information using the phone. Hackers use this trick to trick victims in several ways. One common way that hackers attack you is through the IRS scam. This is one of the oldest vishing scams in the books. The caller will call you and tell you that the IRS is issuing a final notice to you, and they've been trying to reach you since forever, and the IRS is going to file a lawsuit against you. And then they ask you to pay up to resolve the outstanding tax issue. Let's do some math here. The IRS has about 128 million taxpayers in the US and about 89,000 employees at the IRS. Do we really think that one of these employees is reaching out to these taxpayers individually, calling them, asking for them to pay their IRS fees? No. If we're ever in doubt, we can always go to irs.gov and verify with the actual IRS before we pay anyone. Another way that hackers attack us are through our area code. Hackers will often call you through phone numbers that look like they're from your area. These hackers will then tell you that you've won a jackpot worth millions of dollars. But beware, these are often scams. Make sure that when we're getting these phone calls, we hang up immediately or don't answer them. We can then report these scams to the FTC, either through their website or through the FTC's phone number. Some ways to protect us from vishing are to register with the Do Not Call registry, as this tells telemarketers that you don't want to receive calls from them. If you happen to receive calls from telemarketing companies after registering with the National Do Not Call registry, then it's most likely that these are vishing calls. Do not believe the caller ID. This can be faked. Many fraudsters can call you and make it look like it's a caller ID of someone you trust. Always look for distinguishing signs. For instance, in the case of the IRS scam call, know that the IRS never calls people. They'll send you physical letters in the mail. Vishing calls, like phishing attacks, will try to create a sense of urgency so the victim doesn't get time to realize that something fishy is going on. Some of these could even be an actual person at the other end asking for remote access to your laptop to help you fix a technical issue, or asking for your passwords. Make sure you don't fall for these tricks. Remain calm and look for the telltale signs that this is a scam. If someone gives you a number to call, never call it unless the person giving it to you is known to you and a trusted person. A random number passed on to you via email, text, or any other form of social media can lead to an untrusted call where you could end up scammed. Legitimate companies normally won't ask you for your social security number, credit card number, PIN number, or other such sensitive information over a phone call. So don't give any of that information over when you're on a phone call, over text, over email. If you're getting a call or are in the middle of a call that you think is suspicious, hang up immediately and you can look up that number online. For instance, if you think it was your bank calling and you hung up, you can always Google and see, is that phone number a legitimate phone number for that bank? One other option when you're getting a call from a suspicious number is to just let it go to voicemail. Reputable companies will normally leave you a voice message if it's a pressing matter. Generally speaking, try and protect your phone number like you'd protect any other piece of sensitive information. Offers, memberships, and events that ask for your phone number are an endless way for scammers to get your phone number and continue to try to vish you. If you suspect that you've become a victim of identity theft, you can always report it at identitytheft.gov or to the FBI or to the FTC. So those were all the categories I wanted to cover. So I just want to remind us to be smart, to be aware, and be secure. So we have time now at the end here for any questions that people might have.
Yes, Colin, that was amazing. This information is really helpful. And I have a laundry list of things I need to do to protect myself further. So why don't you skip on to the next slide? We'll just flash the disclosures for a moment. And I'm glad we have time for questions, because we do have a lot of really great ones. First of all, there were a couple of questions about, is this webinar going to be available for replay afterwards? The answer is yes, it will be on our YouTube channel and on Mariner. There's a site for that to replay webinars as well. And then you as a registrant will also get an email with a link for the replay. Okay, so let's dive into some of the really interesting questions. The first one is from Rudy. Can you talk a little bit more about trying to keep your smartphone separate from the Internet of Things, the IoT? Are you talking about like, don't connect it to your Nest thermostat and Alexa, or what is that? Tell us more.
Yeah, so when you can, so sometimes these companies won't let you, but always try to keep your smartphone, like don't download the Nest app if you don't have to. Don't download the Amazon Alexa app if you don't have to. These give hackers a way, if they get into your phone, a way to get into your Nest. So one other tip is, for example, if you use Alexa or Google Home, sign into those with a separate Amazon account, a separate Google account than your actual one. That way, if hackers get into that, they don't get access to your actual Amazon account, your actual Google account. So again, a tip here is to keep everything separate when you have the option. So don't log into things. I even go so far as I actually have a separate phone where I have Amazon installed, I have Google installed, and that phone remains off and in my house at all times, unless I need to do something with Amazon or with Google.
Gotcha. All right. We have an interesting question about some differences internationally in cybersecurity. One person says that when they're traveling in Europe and Australia, at the restaurants they go to, the servers bring them a mobile credit card reader so that the credit card never leaves their site. Do you see like any trend like that happening in the US, or what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I've definitely seen more and more people use those bring to your table credit card readers, and I think they're a great idea. Again, you don't want your credit card leaving your site. That's one of the oldest scams in the book, where somebody can write down your credit card number. And banks, thankfully, have gotten much better at detecting when people perform those types of attacks. But again, I think we'll see more and more in the US here that people are going to be bringing those to your table and you'll pay at the table.
Okay. Now, Stuart asked a good question about protecting our information from big businesses and governmental agencies. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, for governmental agencies, there's not much you can do if a government agency wants to hack you.
Okay.
These government agencies have access to highly sophisticated tools where they can install malware on your phone without you clicking on anything. So in those cases, those are very special cases. There's not a lot you can do. In terms of businesses and everyday life, most of these businesses are required to follow certain privacy practices. In particular, California has very stringent privacy laws. So if the business thinks you are from California, they have to handle your data in certain manners. So one tip is whenever I sign up for something and it asks me where I'm from, I'm always from California because of their data protection. So I would go through anything like your Facebook account, your social media accounts, check what kind of privacy settings you have enabled and make sure that you're comfortable with the level of privacy that you have set.
Great tip. Robert asked a good one about Apple versus other phone brands. Is one have better security protocols than others?
It depends. Typically, iPhone can be a little trickier for less advanced hackers to get into because Apple is very strict with how they let things execute. That does not mean that it cannot be attacked. And in fact, again, one of the things like the government agencies, they attack iPhone all the time. So I would say it doesn't really matter ultimately, but Apple might have a very slight edge.
Gotcha. So tell us about your opinion on Face ID.
Yeah, so that's a good question. It depends on where your face is being stored. So for example, on your phone, your Face ID is stored locally on your phone. So nobody has access to that. Other cases, right, your face might be stored in some kind of cloud, right? You want to be careful. You're giving away your face information, right? You're giving away your picture to cloud services. And if those cloud services get hacked, your face gets hacked.
Okay.
In terms of using it as like a locking mechanism, it is a good way to do it. But what we suggest is we always suggest using 3 factors: something you know, like a password, something you are, like your face or your fingerprint, and something you have, like a 2-factor code or one of those RSA tokens, right? So when it comes to securing yourself, you should always try to think of those 3 factors: something you know, something you are, something you have.
Gotcha. Good tip. Talk to us about VPN services. Lots of questions around that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so a VPN is a virtual private network. So when you connect to a VPN, you connect to a separate network. Often these are used for business reasons, right? When I'm working here at ER and Protect, I can connect to a VPN so that I'm on my office network, which is a secured network. It has special firewalls and security practices in place. You can use a VPN to connect directly to your home network. Again, that opens up risk. If you implement it incorrectly, you might be allowing anyone to connect to your home network. Or you could use a VPN service like NordVPN. And again, when you're connecting to something like one of these VPN services, you're just trusting a different person. So instead of trusting Starbucks to keep my data safe, I'm trusting NordVPN to keep my data safe. And again, you have to do your own risk analysis here and decide which of these entities you trust and who you're going to give your data to.
Gotcha. And that applies to both computers and smartphones, because you can
Yes.
get VPN service on your phone too.
Yes, you can have a VPN on your phone or on your laptop or on your desktop even.
Okay. Do you have any VPN services that you'd recommend?
I don't have any that I would recommend. I have one that I use. I'm not sure I would recommend it though. They have had issues in the past. So I would do some research into the VPN provider. And ultimately, 99% of the cases, a VPN is not going to help you too much, right? If you're connecting to a hacker's Wi-Fi, well, they're going to read all your data before it goes to the VPN even. If you're in Starbucks and you're sending sensitive information, well, now you're sending that sensitive information to your VPN provider, right? So it can be tricky.
Wow. Okay. That surprises me. Good to know. Okay. So let's rewind back to your talk about traveling and tips for keeping safe then. So we know do not access any sensitive information when you're on public Wi-Fi. But is it okay to use cell service to access public information private information while you're traveling?
I would be careful using cell service as well. There are some ways where hackers can set up fake cell spots. These are not as common as the fake Wi-Fi spots, and they're a little harder for hackers to do. My biggest tip is if you're on the go, don't access any sensitive information. In terms of like online banking and things, my biggest tip and what I do is I have a separate laptop that I use only for accessing financial accounts. And this laptop is turned off and I only connect it to my home network when I know that it is a safe time to connect it. So I would not access anything mobilely, and I would even have separate devices to access all that sensitive information.
Okay. It's a good reason to get myself another laptop. All right. Tell us about hotspots. More secure?
If you're using your own personal hotspot, that's fine. It is your traffic going to your hotspot. I would not connect to somebody else's hotspot because that's just somebody else's network, right? They can read all of your traffic if you connect to their hotspot. So I would only recommend connecting to your own hotspot that you know you control.
Okay. All right. I'm going to rewind back again to your recommendations for like preventing attacks with you mentioned firewall, antivirus, and malware services or scanning services. Can you just do a quick synopsis over those different services again, and like how someone like myself would go about getting those services?
Yeah. So the first thing, your first layer of defense is called the firewall. And the firewall looks at your network traffic. So this is incoming and outgoing connections to the internet. So most devices come with a firewall installed already. So for example, on Windows, you have access to the Windows firewall. The biggest tip is to make sure you haven't accidentally turned that off. So by default, your firewall should be on and should have good security measures for normal people. So make sure that you haven't accidentally turned that off. So I would check your settings. If you type in firewall, it'll come up with your firewall settings, and you can check to make sure that it's enabled and that it's set to the recommended settings. So the next layer of defense is some kind of anti-malware or anti-virus solution. So this is something that you can install on your computer, and this will monitor your computer. It'll scan your files to check if any files have known malware in them. So most of these solutions today also come with features where if you click on a malicious website or if you download a malicious file, it will stop that connection immediately and let you know that it stopped that connection. So those are kind of your big, as an individual, your big ways to defend yourself are through having a firewall installed and make sure that it's turned on, enabled, and working properly, and to have some kind of anti-malware, antivirus installed, and that you regularly run scans, and that it's set to actively look for new downloads, look for new web connections, and block any bad ones.
Okay. And the anti-malware, is that something that you just get through an app store or?
Yeah, so you can download these. There's lots of antivirus, anti-malware companies out there. So one that I had mentioned earlier that I like is called Malwarebytes. They have a free and a premium version, but there's lots of other anti-malware software out there that works just as well.
Gotcha. Victoria has a great question about hearing aids being connected to Bluetooth. Should she disable them when traveling through airplanes and on airports?
That is a great question. Yeah, it depends on how critical the hearing aid is, right? You have to do a risk analysis here. The Bluetooth connection certainly could be compromised. I'm not sure what specific kind of hearing aid you have or what kind of data it's transmitting over Bluetooth. It could be transmitting harmless data, right? Which isn't the end of the world if a hacker can read that. Or it might be transmitting sensitive data, right? And in that case, you want to make sure you do turn off Bluetooth, right? So it's a situation by situation kind of approach there. You have to do some kind of risk assessment there for yourself and determine, is the risk of getting hacked via Bluetooth worth it? Or should I just turn it off while I'm in these situations?
Okay, there are so many great questions that I just don't think we're going to have time to get to, but one that I see often, and I will admit, I've seen this with my own dad. I was sitting on the couch with him last week and I was helping him log into some online accounts, and he pulled up his phone and he had all of his passwords in his notes application. So can you just give a word to everybody about your thoughts on that?
Excellent. Yeah, I'm really glad you asked this. So obviously having all of your passwords on your notes application means that if your notes application is stolen, all of your passwords are stolen. So the biggest recommendation I have is to use a password manager. So these are services that you set one master password, and then anytime you log into a new site or anytime you open a new account somewhere, it'll generate a completely random, long, secure password and remember it for you. So I highly recommend using some kind of password manager. There's lots of them out there and they all pretty much do the same thing, and most of them are free. So if you take away anything from here, that is one of my biggest tips for individuals, and it helps you generate unique, secure passwords for every site so that you won't repeat your password anywhere. It'll help you generate long, secure passwords that can't be guessed. So those are one huge tip. Another tip here, and it's kind of similar to the Notes app, is if you sign up to all of your accounts with the same email address, well, if I hit forgot email or forgot password, and I have access to that email address, I can reset your password for everything. So this is another reason why we need to use different email addresses, right? We should have one email address for financial things. We should have another email address for more trivial things, right? So make sure that you're not keeping all of your eggs in one basket, right? Don't keep all of your passwords in a note page. Don't sign up for everything with the same email address. So password security is something that we as individuals should take very seriously, and something like a password manager and using separate email addresses can go a long way to keep you secure.
Colin, thank you so much for sharing all of this. This is really helpful and pertinent information for us all. I'm sorry to all of you that we didn't get to your questions. There were so many good ones. Please reach out back to Mariner and we'll connect you with somebody who can answer your question. Thank you everyone for attending another Mariner Wealth Advisors webinar. Colin, and thank you so much.
Thank you.